See, in the last lecture, okay, I have introduced you about what sort of the questions they will be asking in the examination. Okay, and most of these questions are basically the MCQ type. Okay, so till question 23 we have seen 22 we have seen. Now let's see the next question. Okay, that is basically the question number 23. Okay, the question number 23 is discretization includes numbering. Discretization includes numbering. Numbering what? Either element and node, only element, or node or element. Okay, so all of you just go through this question and let me know what could be the answer. Discretization include, that means in discretization we are numbering element and node, or only node, or only element, or either node or element. Okay, very simple question is there. Okay, so let me know which option is correct. Okay, you can unmute yourself and you can let me know the answers. Okay, I got one response, that is from Salman, right? He's saying that node and element both. That is option number A, right? So obviously this option is correct. Okay, in discretization we are going to number the elements as well as nodes, right? So if you see this option A, okay, this option A, it is correct. Option A is correct, right? Now next let's move to the next question. Question number 24. In elimination approach, which elements are eliminated from the matrix? In elimination approach, which elements are eliminated from the matrix? Force, loads, rows and columns, undefined. Okay, force is eliminated, or load is eliminated, or rows is eliminated. Okay, or it is undefined. Okay, question number 24. Okay, you can see in elimination approach which elements are eliminated from the matrix, either force or load or rows and columns, or
Undefined.
right? Huh? Undefined. How? See, if any displacement gets zero, any displacement, that is basically the primary variable, might be displacement. Okay, that might be linear or angular. If it is getting zero, then obviously we are going to eliminate that particular row and column, right? That particular row and column we are going to eliminate. Is it okay? Is it okay or not? See,
Yes,
if u1 is 0, let's say if u1 is 0, if displacement u1 is 0, okay, and if u1 it is written in first row, if it is written in first row, then that first row and that column, first column, gets cancelled, right? So this option C is correct, right? Now let's move to the next question. Question number 25. The governing equation for the horizontal bar is, okay, see, let me make you remember that. Okay, we have solved, okay, one of this equation, okay, one of the equation in a Rayleigh-Ritz method. Okay, out of this 4 equation, one equation we have solved in Rayleigh-Ritz method. Okay, obviously that method, that equation is a governing differential equation. That out of these 4, one governing differential equation we have solved by using Rayleigh-Ritz method for getting the value of EME. Okay, so can you guess which option is correct? Okay, which is the governing differential equation for bar under axial load? Okay, so see here, see all of you, let me know. See this option D, is correct. That is AE du by dx is equal to 0. Okay, see, you can see this one, option D. D by dx of EA du by dx is equal to 0. You can see this option D. D by dx of EA du by dx is equal to 0. Okay, that is the equation which we have, okay, which we have solved by using Rayleigh-Ritz method, right? For getting the value of EME, okay, for getting the value of EME, right? Similarly, if there is any force which is acting, we can also consider this equation. Okay, option A is also what you can say, it's again correct, right? If there is any force which is acting, we can use this equation. If there is no force is acting, we can use this equation. Okay, but see, out of these two, if any option is you entered, then that can be considered as the correct option. Okay, now one of the like 18 emittents, Salman is saying that there is no force is been introduced, right? There is no force is given, so that you can use this equation. That is equation number D. If any force is given, you can use this equation. Okay, right? So this is all about this what sort of MCQ questions are expected in your examination. Okay, now let me move to one more sample question paper which I've made. Okay, obviously I will make this question paper available for you. Okay, but instead of only making those questions, I'll be explaining you, okay, how to reach it to the answers, right? So now let's start with this one. Element stiffness matrix, question number one. Element stiffness matrix for bar under torsional load. I'm expecting element stiffness matrix for bar under torsional load. Okay, is given by. So you have these four options. Okay, so out of that you can have any which
option B, sir. Option B,
right? Gj by L 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, right? So option B is correct. See, I always ask you, you should strictly remember the element stiffness matrices for every field. For structural field, in structural field, we have three cases. First is bar under axial load, okay, E by L. Then bar under torsional load, Gj by L. Then for stiffness, it is only K. Then we have thermal field, in which we have conduction, Ka by L. Then we have convection, that is Ha, right? And after that, we have fluid field, in which we have flow of the fluid through a pipe. Okay, where that EME it is given by pi by 128 d raised to power 4 upon mu into L. Right? So this the six EME element matrix, right, which I told you, this you are supposed to remember. Then there will not be any confusion, right? Now let's move to the question number 2. Which of the following method is a weak form of weighted residual method? Which of the following
Rayleigh-Ritz method. Option
right?
B,
See,
sir.
it's Rayleigh-Ritz. See, Rayleigh-Ritz method. That is option B. It's correct because Rayleigh-Ritz it is only the weak form, right? Rayleigh-Ritz it is only the weak form. Okay, if you talk about collocation, Galerkin, least square, subdomain, all those are non-weak form. Right? Now next move to the question number 3. Okay, question number 3. In case of an Galerkin method, residue is obtained by, okay, how will I obtain the residue? In Galerkin method, the residue is obtained by, just guess.
Option A, sir. Imposing only essential boundary condition.
You are saying about only essential boundary conditions. Just think and let me know again. See, all of you try to understand that if you talk about the Galerkin method, see, that is the reason why I'm taking this session. See, if you talk about collocation method, Galerkin method, least square method, and subdomain method, all these four methods are non-weak form, right? They are non-weak form. And if there is non-weak form, we are going to apply essential as well as natural boundary conditions, right? We are going to apply essential as well as natural boundary condition. Okay, so we are going to impose essential as well as natural boundary condition. Okay, if you go for weak form such as this Rayleigh-Ritz method, we are going to apply only essential boundary condition. Okay, for Rayleigh-Ritz method, which is weak form, we are going to apply only essential boundary condition. But if you talk about Galerkin method, which is non-weak form, we are going to apply essential as well as natural boundary conditions. Is it okay? Is that okay? Have you understood the concept?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Next question, it is similar what I explained just now. Okay, go to question number 4. In Rayleigh-Ritz method, weight functions are obtained by just a time before I told you. In Rayleigh-Ritz
Only
method,
essential boundary condition.
right. In case of a Rayleigh-Ritz method, weight functions are obtained by imposing only essential boundary conditions. Just a time before we have seen. In non-weak form, we are going to apply essential and natural. While in case of a weak form, which is basically the Rayleigh-Ritz method, we are going to apply only essential boundary condition, right? So this option 4 is correct. Okay, now. Okay, just see this question number 5. The shape functions at node 1. Okay, shape functions at node 1 for 2 node 1D element. Okay, 2 node 1D element. Try to understand. 1D element, it is nothing but a line element, right? 1D, it's a line, right? So if it is a line, okay, how many nodes it will have? Okay, if there are 2 nodes, it is called as linear element. Okay, if it is 2 node, it is called as linear element, right? So if it is 1D element, 1D is a line element, okay, and 2 node, it's a linear element. Okay, so that is 1D linear element, 1D linear element, right? So if it is 1D linear element, so it's shape function at node 1. Okay, there are 2 nodes. Okay, so what is the shape function at node 1? You can see we have derived those equations. Okay, so let me know which option is correct. Which option is correct?
Option B, sir. Option B.
Option B. You're talking about option B. See, there are 2 nodes. See, whatever the option you are told, na, this is the shape function, but this is not for node 1. See, for node 1, it is 1 minus x by he, and for node 2, it is x by he. Try to understand. Okay. For node 1, because there are 2 nodes. Node 1, it is leftmost node, and node 2, it is rightmost node. Okay, what is the distance between leftmost node and rightmost node? It is he. Okay, what is the distance between leftmost node and rightmost node? It is he. Okay, so shape function at leftmost node, that is node number 1, it is 1 minus x by he, and shape function at node 2, it is x by he. Is it okay? Right?
Okay, sir.
See, and these two options, they doesn't exist. Option C and D, they doesn't exist. Is it okay? Right? Now just go to this question number 6, somewhat tricky question. For the trust having 2 members, okay, so this, you have basically a trust which are having 2 members. That means you have 2 elements. Okay, every member of the trust is an element, right? So there are 2 members, that means 2 elements, and these 2 elements are interconnected by 3 nodes. These 2 members are connected, okay, by 3 nodes. Okay, then what is the size of the global stiffness matrix? Size means in the form of number of rows into columns, So just tell me what is the size?
4 into 2, sir, na?
4 into 2.
4 into 2.
That is the reason why I called this as a tricky question.
4 into 2, sir.
4 into 2. See, you will never get size somewhat like this. 4 into 2. Number of rows into number of columns. Number of rows will be same as number of columns. Try to understand. See this. If you talk about this question number 6, okay, that there are two members which are connected by three nodes. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many members you have or how many elements you have. Your size of the global stiffness matrix will be only determined by number of nodes and degrees of freedoms per node, right? Okay, so how will calculate size of the global stiffness matrix? Okay, it is size of the global stiffness matrix. It is given by number of nodes multiplied by degrees of freedom per node. So there are three nodes. There are three nodes. Try to understand. There are three nodes, right? And each node can move in two direction. Each node can move in. Each node can move in two direction, right? So 3 into 2. 3 into 2 is 6. 3 into 2 is 6, right? So size here will be 6 by 6. At the starting only I told you. Okay, this is somewhat tricky question. Okay, so size will be 6 by 6. See, at some point you might say to me that, sir, the options are not correct. At some point you should say that, but you haven't told, right? See, what I told you, how will calculate size of the global stiffness matrix? Size of the global stiffness matrix will be determined by number of nodes multiplied by degrees of freedom per node, right? So there are three nodes, right? Three nodes. So that is three nodes. That is 3 into. Now, if you talk about the member of truss, each node of the truss can move in horizontal as well as in vertical direction. Each node of the truss can move in horizontal as well as in vertical direction. Why it is so? Because on the truss you're going to apply the force in horizontal direction as well as in the vertical direction, right? So every node can move either in horizontal or in vertical or in both, right? So see, there are three nodes. Each node can move in two directions. So 3 into 2 is 6. So size of the global stiffness matrix is 6 by 6. This option is not given here. Okay. Now see, if you want to select one of the option from given option, okay. So here instead of 3, you should have 2. You should have 2. Is it okay? So if there are two members which are interconnected by two nodes, right? Which are interconnected by two nodes, then this option 4 by 4 is correct, right? Then option 4 by 4 is correct. Is it okay? Is it okay? Is it okay or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now just go to question number 7. Sources of error in finite element analysis does not include error due to the approximation of the domain, error due to the approximation of the solution, error due to the numerical computation, and error due to the incorrect formulation. Error due to the incorrect formulation. Okay, someone has quoted this option D is correct, right? It's D is correct, right? So this option D is correct. Error that is due to the incorrect formulations, right? That is not been taken in the as a source of error in FEA, right? If you this all these three errors will be there, right? But this will not be there. Option number D. Okay, now see this element stiffness matrix for beam element. See, if you talk about element stiffness matrix for bar element, that is for truss element. Okay, more specifically for truss element, it is AE by L, L square, LM, LM, M square. See, that was a matrix, right? But if you talk about the element
Option A, sir.
stiffness matrix for a beam element, okay, you can see this four options. Okay, let me know which option is correct.
Option A, sir. Option A.
Option A,
Yes, sir.
right? It is a correct option. EI by L cube. You can see there. See how to remember this. See here, 12 is there, 6L, 6L, right? So these terms will be always there. 12, 6L, 6L, and 4L square, 4L square, right? If you see here, instead of 4, you have 2 here. Again, here you have 2 here. Okay, and this 4, it is as it is here, right? And you can see clearly signs. These two signs are minus, these two signs are minus, and these two signs are minus. This is how you're going to remember. Rather, I remember. Right? So you can also follow the same method to remember. Right? This is all about option number 8. Now let's move to the next question, of question number 9. The boundary conditions which are expressed in terms of secondary variable are known as boundary conditions which are expressed in terms of secondary variable are known as simple question is there, just go through that. See, let me see, one of you have just quoted some answer. You can directly speak instead of putting in a chat box. You can speak, you can unmute yourself and you can put. Question number 9. Boundary conditions which are expressed in terms of secondary variable. Boundary conditions which are expressed in terms of secondary variable. See, instead of searching for the answer without looking for the options, you should know what is the answer. Okay, you should
Natural
prepare.
boundary condition.
Right. See, it is a natural boundary condition. See, the boundary conditions which are defined in terms of primary are essential, and the boundary conditions which are defined in terms of secondary, they are natural, right? They are natural. What is about this geometric? Geometric, it is same as essential. Okay, what is about Dirichlet? It is same as essential. Okay, so only this option C is correct. Rest of the A, B, and D have the same meaning, right? They have the same meaning. Okay, now let's go to question number 10. Following is true about the natural coordinate system. Okay, so which of the following limits are true about the natural coordinate system? We are talking about the limits for the zeta, or what is the domain, or what is the range for zeta and eta. Just go through that. See, zeta and eta, it's basically the natural coordinate system. Zeta and eta, it's basically the natural coordinate system. I expect you okay, you unmute yourself and you just tell me the answer.
टेन का है सर.
Option
A, sir. A. Option A.
option A. No, see, option A is not correct, because see, in zeta and eta we need to fit entire thing between -1 to 1. I hope you understood. We need to fit entire thing between -1 to 1. -1 to 1. We need to fit that between -1 to 1. Everything we need to fit between -1 to 1. I hope now you understood.
Option C, sir.
Option
Option B, sir. Option B,
Right,
sir.
option B is correct. You try to understand. We need to fit everything between -1 to 1. You can see here value of zeta and neta. It should be either less. Okay, zeta and neta. It should be. See here. It should be equal to or greater than -1, or it should be equal to or less than 1. Okay, it should be greater than or equal to -1, and it should be less than or equal to 1. So option B is correct. Right. Now let's go to the next question. In P method, right? See, in P method, try to understand. In P method, what is expected in P method? See, I will not go into the detail what is H and P method, because this has been already explained you in the uh, previous lecture, right? So I hope that you remember it. Okay. So what could be the answer in P method? What we are doing? So simple now. What is P method? See, for that you should understand what is H method first. What is H and P method? There are two methods, H and P method. Okay, so if you are not able to understand, let me explain you how it works. Okay, let's see that. Let's consider this is a bar. Okay, this is basically the bar. Okay, for which and this is, let's say it is fixed, because I need to make it fixed. Otherwise, what will happen? Fixing is nothing but a boundary condition. Otherwise, the structure can't sustain. Okay? So if I need to solve this problem, let's say by using H method, okay, so let's say in H method, what we'll do, I can solve this problem by considering this as a single element. Okay, so I will consider this as only a single element. Okay, this is element number 1 with two nodes 1 and 2. Okay, so this is the first method. Okay, with element 1 and 2. Okay, now if I need to solve this problem by using H method, what I will do is, okay, I will increase the number of element. Okay, so instead of taking a single element, I will take this as a two element. Okay, two element. Okay, so I will get this as element number 1, right? This as element number 1, and this as element number 2. Okay, but if you can see clearly, every element will have only two nodes. Node number 1 will have two nodes, that is 1 and 2, and sorry, element number 1 will have two nodes 1 and 2, and element number 2 will have two nodes, that is 2 and 3, right? So that this method is basically the H method. Okay, this is H method, right? This method, it is called as H method. We have just increased the number of element. Okay, we have increased the number of element by keeping order of the element same. What is the order? Because for if you consider any element number 1 or element number 2, it is having only two nodes. Okay, so element with the two nodes, it's a linear element. Element with the two nodes, it is linear element. So we have maintained its order only a linear element. That is, when you consider one element, it is also a linear element, and when you consider two element, okay, so both of these elements are linear element, because both of these elements will have only two nodes. So that is H method. Now, if I need to solve this problem by using P method, I will solve this problem now by using P method. So I will redraw that problem. I will redraw that problem. Okay. So now, in order to solve that problem by using P method, I will consider, okay, this is a single element, right? Try to understand. This is a single element with two nodes, node number 1 and node number 2. Okay, same problem I solved. Now, if I need to solve by using P method, what I will do is, okay, I will increase its order. Try to understand. I will increase its order. Okay, here order was linear. Here order is linear. Try to understand. Here the order is linear element. here it is linear. Okay, now I will make this linear element. Okay, I will make this linear element as quadratic element. Okay, so I will have only again single element. I will have only a single element, that is element number 1, but this element number 1 will have 3 nodes. Will have 3 nodes. So this becomes a quadratic element. Try to understand. This becomes a quadratic element. Okay, so initially the element which I consider as a linear, that is element with the 2 node, I'll make that element a quadratic, that is 3 node. That means I have increased the order from linear to quadratic. I have increased the order from linear to quadratic by keeping same element, same number of element, by keeping same number of element. That is element number is only 1. There is only one element. Okay, so in P method, what we are doing, we are increasing the order of element by keeping the number of elements same. That is option number D is correct. See, order of the element is increased by keeping number of elements same, right? So that is nothing but your P method. I hope you understood. Is it understood? Is it understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let's go to this third question. In the elements in which more number of nodes are used to define the geometry compared to the number of nodes used to define the displacement, it is called as what? See, if the number of nodes used to define the geometry are less, okay, are less as compared to the number of loads used to define the displacement, then it is called as a subparametric. If it is less, it is subparametric. If number of nodes defining the
Option
geometry,
C.
right. Option number C is correct. Why it is so? If number of nodes defining the geometry are less as compared to the number of nodes used to define the displacement, then it is subparametric. Okay, if number of nodes defining the geometry are same as number of nodes defining the displacement, then it is isoparametric. But if number of nodes defining the geometry are more, here you can see are more as compared to the number of nodes used to define the displacement, then it is called as a superparametric. Okay, so option C is correct. Go to now question number 13. Jacobian matrix. Okay, Jacobian matrix. Purpose to determine the Jacobian matrix is used to relate which two systems?
Local coordinate to Cartesian coordinate.
No. Try to understand. The Jacobian matrix, it's basically the transformation matrix, okay, for Cartesian to natural. Okay, Cartesian to natural. So option D is correct. Option D is correct. Right? Now go to question number 14. Question number 14. Aspect ratio. Aspect ratio is what? The ratio of aspect ratio is the ratio of
Option C.
option
C.
option C. It is independent of dimensions of the element. How? In the last lecture only we have seen aspect ratio. It's the ratio of larger to smaller dimension. In the last lecture only we have seen aspect ratio.
Larger to smaller.
Smaller dimension. It is the ratio of larger to smaller dimension. Okay, so I'll just skip this question number 15. We will take it afterwards. Okay, just go to question number 16. Okay, just go through question number 16. Okay, displacement. Okay, This is question number 16. The stress strain relation matrix D for the plane stress condition. For the plane stress, we are talking about plane stress condition. About plane stress condition. Okay. We are talking about plane stress. You should be able to remember this value. See, try to understand. See, if you see this option, E divided by 1 minus mu, E divided by 1 minus mu will be never there. It is always E divided by 1 minus mu square. Mu square should be there. Okay. So option B and C, they never exist. Right. Now go to this option A and option D. Right. E divided by 1 minus mu square, E divided by 1 minus mu square. It is there. So we need to select from option A and D.
Sir.
Right. Option A is correct. Because see, if you can see here 1 mu, okay, then here you have mu 1, and here it should be 1 minus mu by 2. Okay, which is here you won't see. Here only mu by 2. So option A is correct. Option A is correct. Right? Option A is correct. Go see question number 17. It's basically numerical. I'll take it afterwards. Now see this one. One of the shape function. I'm talking about one of the shape function for 4 noded quadrilateral element. One of the shape functions for 4 noded quadrilateral elements are given by one of the shape functions.
Option C, sir.
Option
C.
Option C. No.
Yes,
See,
sir.
see, try to understand.
Option A.
Option A, right? Option A is correct, because see, if you see B, C, and D, na, you are getting square term. You are getting square term, and in the shape, in the no formula of the shape function, you will get square. Okay, that is for 4 noded. If you see the shape functions for 4 noded quadrilateral element, none of the shape function will have this term that is square. Okay, so B is going to scrap, C will also scrap, and this D is also scrap. So this option A is correct. Option A is correct. Is it okay? Now just see this question number 19. The strain displacement relation matrix for 3 noded triangular element is given by. Okay, strain displacement relation matrix for 3 noded triangular element is given by.
Option C.
Option
C.
Option C.
Yes,
C.
sir.
Right. See, option this option is correct, because see, you have always 1 by 2 delta. See, for every option you have 1 by 2 delta. Okay, but this term should be starting from beta 1. You need to, it should start from beta 1. See here, beta 1 0, beta 2 0, beta 3 0, 0 gamma 1, 0 gamma 2, 0 gamma 3, gamma 1 beta 1, gamma 2 beta 2, gamma 3 beta 3. So option C is correct. Option C is correct. Right. Okay, now I'll just skip this question number 20, because this is to be solved. Just this question number 21. See this question number 21. Okay, just we have the triangular element which are having the nodes at 10, 10, 40, 20, 30, 50 for node number 1, 2, 3 respectively. If your shape functions n1 and n2 are 0.35 and 0.25. Okay, value of n1 is 0.35, n2 is 0.25. Then what is the value of n3? What is the value of n3? Can you tell?
0.4.
Right, it's a 4.4. Why it is so? See, n1 plus n2 plus n3 is equal to 1. If you see this addition of n1 plus n2, it is 0.6. So 1 minus 0.6, it will come as a 0.4. Right? So option this for 21, option A is correct. Okay. So in this lecture only we have seen this question. Governing equations can be obtained by using Let me know.
Option D.
Option
D.
D. No, it's wrong. See, you try to understand. There is only one principle that is called as principle of stationary total potential. Okay, principle of stationary total potential, and it is also known as principle of minimum potential energy. Okay, principle of minimum potential energy. Principle of stationary total potential. It is also known as principle of minimum potential energy. So option B is correct. Option B is correct. Is it okay? Okay. Now this question number 23 we have already taken in this lecture only. 24 is also taken. We'll go to question number 25. Which of the following statement is not true? Is not true about the shape functions. Okay, I'm talking about which statement is not true. So clearly read those statements. Value of the shape function is equal to 1 for the node for which it is defined and 0 for all other nodes. Okay, so is it true? They're asking which is not true. So is it true? Value of the shape function is equal to 1 for the node for which
Yes,
it is
sir.
defined
True.
and 0 for all other nodes, right? So it is true, right? So it is true. So option A is not correct, right? Go to option B. Addition of shape function is equal to 1 everywhere within element domain. Is it true?
True, sir.
Right, it's true. B is also true. Go to now this option C. The shape function enables to predict the primary variable everywhere within the domain. With the help of shape functions, we can calculate the primary variable everywhere within the domain. Is it true?
False, sir.
It is false. Why? Try to understand the meaning of this question number C. This option C. See, just consider. I will give you the example of triangular element. The triangular elements which are having 3 nodes, node number 1, 2, and 3. Okay, you have temperature at node 1, that is T1. You have temperature at node 2, that is T2. And you have the temperature at node 3, that is T3. Okay. Now, if I ask you, what is the value of temperature at this particular point? Okay, at this particular point, which is lying basically inside a triangle. So can you calculate this by using shape function? Okay, let me call this as point P. So if I ask you, what is the temperature at point P? Can you calculate temperature at point P?
Yes, sir.
How will you calculate? For that you require shape function, na? It is N1,
T1
right? N1 T1 plus N2 T2, right? Plus N2 T2, right? Plus N3 T3, right? So this is how you can calculate the temperature. And temperature, it is nothing but your what? It's a primary variable, right? Temperature, it is nothing but a primary variable. Yes or no? Okay, N3
Yes,
T3,
sir.
N3 T3. Okay. See, here it is T2. Huh? This is here it is T2. Okay, so temperature. If you talk about temperature, it is what? It is a primary variable. Why it is called as primary variable? Okay, because you have this formula, na? That is stiffness matrix. Okay, that is been multiplied by temperature. Stiffness matrix that is multiplied by temperature will give you the value of what? Heat transfer, na? Yes or no? Will give you the value of heat transfer, that is Q. Okay, so whatever the term here, that is temperature. Okay, temperature, it is nothing but a primary variable, right? So instead of temperature, okay, if you write down here as a displacement, instead of temperature, if you write down here as a displacement U, then here it becomes force, right? Displacement, then it becomes force, right? So if you talk about temperature or displacement, these are primary variables, while force or heat, they are secondary variable. Okay, so option C is also correct, because with the help of shape functions, we can predict the primary variable like temperature, displacement everywhere within the domain. Okay, if I ask you what is the temperature at this particular point, let's say point T, let's say not point T, let's say point Y, what is the temperature at point Y? You are not able to calculate because this point it is lying outside the triangle, so this formula will not be applicable, right? Now let's go to the option D. Shape function is a material property. Is it that? Whether the shape function will depends upon material. Have you seen the shape function is a material property? Is it a case? Is it a case?
No, sir.
No. See, shape function, if you talk about the shape function, it's basically a geometric property. It will depends upon geometry, right? So shape function, it's not a material property, right? So this statement is not true. Option D is not true. Okay, option D is not true. Okay, which of the following statement is not true about shape function? So shape function is a material property. It's not true. It's basically the geometric property. Shape function, it will depends upon geometry. Okay, because shape functions are different for different elements like 1D linear, 1D quadratic, 1D cubic. Okay, 3-noded triangular, 4-noded rectangular, 4-noded quadrilateral, 8-noded quadrilateral. For every different geometry, you will have different shape functions. So shape functions is a geometric property and not a material property. So this state question option number D, it's not true, right? So this is the correct answer for question number 25. That is option D. Right? Is it okay? Right? So have you understood? Is it okay to you?
Yes, sir.